Hey guys, what's up? It's Solo, and today we are going to be talking about horde modes. Now, I already did a discussion about horde modes a little bit ago, but this time I wanted to specifically highlight one we've seen in the past. Mostly to do with the one everybody puts on probably one of the highest pedestals in an activity's history, which is Menagerie. If you guys don't know what Menagerie was, it was an activity that we got for Season of Opulence back in Forsaken, where you would you'd start out with a basic chalice, and then over time, after doing the activity, it would go into a weapon and armor crafting chalice where you could specify what stat you wanted, what kind of gear you wanted, so on and so forth. And that became really popular because it gave a lot of build freedom around, what you want to build. Now, another big thing is, if you guys don't know me, I feel like sometimes people overhyped Menagerie. The reason why is because Menagerie was technically a horde mode, just more like Days of Eternity than, say, Nightmare Containment, So it wasn't like super bad or anything. It was just, I felt like it definitely felt overhyped sometimes, especially with how people would talk about it. Because people would act like it was some sort of godsend. So I was like, you know what, I'll go watch some videos, because this was the time in Destiny that I actually wasn't playing. Because back then, what happened was my main group that I played with, that consisted, of course, of my brother and a bunch of our friends, stopped playing Destiny entirely. And so I was the last one remaining, and at the time, I just didn't want to play. And I just eventually disappeared from Destiny. So mostly after Shadowkeep came out, and by that time I was in college, and I was playing with my buddies that I've known since high school. But yeah, looking back at Menagerie, I can see why people liked it. Like, you can definitely see that it had a lot of good things in it. For example, it had a difficulty that felt like it was the legendary difficulty, right? But it didn't feel like it needed champions to achieve that. And that's a big thing about, things nowadays, is like with Master Ketchcrash, the only reason why it's harder is because there's champions. Like, other than that, you're not getting mollywopped by regular ads. You're getting mollywopped by the champions that somebody forgot to bring a mod for. And we already went into this discussion of guns having, different perks, yada yada yada, and that could combat how bad the champion system is. But taking a look at Menagerie, it definitely gives me vibes of the legendary campaign from Witch Queen, because it feels like a normal activity. But back then, when you go into it, it felt like you were basically going up against a wall, and it felt difficult, but it didn't feel impossible, if that made sense. So, like, it didn't feel like you went in and went, okay, I can't do this because there's no way I can do this. It was, okay, this is pretty difficult, And another thing about it is it was a difficult activity that had matchmaking, so you could go into Menagerie as a solo player and be fine, whereas you want to do Master Ketchcrash now, there's no matchmaking, because that's just how Destiny's been. So the big thing that came out of that was actually our first, I guess, big look at weapon crafting. And I feel like weapon crafting kinda, in a sense, has messed with the balance of things quite a bit. And what I mean by this is, like, for example, the end game now requires you to have certain crafted rolls. For example, if you do not have this type hand at, you know, fully done level. I think it's like 20 is like the highest to get the enhanced, and you don't have a certain role on it with boss spec, people aren't gonna want you to be in high-end like master content. And that's the thing. But that's like, it's not like it was gotten from anything super hard. It was gotten from logging in and going to the Enclave. Like, it wasn't anything tremendously good. Well, until people started using it and realized it had some perks that made it tremendously good. But anyway, looking at Menagerie, I definitely think it had a lot of good things in it. There was some downsides to it, because I know there was like limits on what you could do every week. And that's how they kind of limited people from grinding like power. Back then, was they would limit it. But I can definitely see why people have an infatuation with the mode. Seemings, it definitely does give me Dares of Eternity vibes, but like higher difficulty. Like I said, and it doesn't feel like it needs champions to be better. And I don't even know if it had champions at any point. But the big takeaway from this is it shows that Bungie, if they have enough people, because mind you, another thing you have to take away from this is Forsaken era, which means this is Bungie / Activision era, which means they had not only Bungie working on it, but another team at Activision also actively working on it. So they had more hands on deck. Now, I don't know, you know, how everything's going with the whole, you know, new hires and stuff like that. I know there was a tweet that went around to like everybody talking about how they're working on new stuff for like PvP players and stuff along those lines, and that's why they've been hiring a lot more people, is because they want to give more content. And that's a good thing, because if it's going to be a way for them to get new content by having a lot more people, then so be it. And I'm hoping with the more people they add, the more, you know, I guess things to do, because that is a big thing I've seen with current seasons. Is like, for example, for me, I hit 1580 across the board a while ago. Hold up. And when I hit 1580, the only thing left for me to do now is just to level up my artifact over and over and over and over and over again until I hit 1600. And then after that, I'd be doing GMs and stuff like that, and trying to get my Conqueror title, because I'm a PvE player, and sometimes I dabble in PvP. By the way, whoever tells you that this is a PvE triumph, they are smoking the highest of weed. Because I hate to break it to you, every single one of these requires you to go into Crucible. So that is a PvEVP triumph. But anyway, no, and I think the biggest thing we can learn from Menagerie is that there is a way to introduce difficulty, like in the Legend campaign, without having to have champions around the corner. And there's also a way to reward people for doing things better. Like, I'm sorry, if I'm, you know, dominating in Gambit and playing Gambit every day, of course, you're gonna want a better reward than, say, someone who's just kind of sitting by an invasion portal. And that was the biggest, I guess, downside of Gambit Prime, was with the armor sets. It kind of rewards some people being greedy about stuff like invasion portals or things like that. That's why you had a bunch of PvP players who would go into Gambit with the Invader set and just invade all the time. Now, mind you, if you go and look at my sets The only complete set I had was Reaper. I was trying to get the Collector back when I stopped playing, but unfortunately I didn't get it, so rip me, I guess. But that was the thing. It felt like I was being rewarded, although it was the same armor piece, but it had different perks based on what color it was, like what job it did. And that's what I'm talking about, is I want to see Bungie lean into the type of people who play their game. You know, I don't want it to be, as I said in the last video, super cash, but I also don't want the hardcore players like myself to also get shafted in the end of the day. And like, I know people are like, oh, well, you know, they gotta make people want to play the game. And I'm like, you want people to keep playing your game, your hardcore people are gonna stop playing because there's nothing to do at the end of the day. Because like, the only thing left for me to do this season is complete the seasonal story and then Festival of the Lost. The only reason for me, I hope Festival of the Lost has some good shaders this time around. Hopefully. But the only reason I do Festival of the Lost is because, well, Festival of the Lost has always been a pretty cool, you know, game mode for, or sorry, event for the game. It's always been pretty cool. Plus, I could probably get, you know, I already can tell you that I'm gonna get the mech armor pretty easily, or at least the paid mech armor, I should say, because if you have 6,000 Bright Dust, you can buy the mech armor when it comes out, because that's how they've always done it. Is there's a paid version and there's a Bright Dust version. To get the Bright Dust version, all you have to do is have 6,000 Bright Dust and you can get it. And if you're like me and just casually hoard Bright Dust all the time, you're gonna have that. But no, it feels like definitely the hardcore players are in the back burner. And I'm not gonna say that, oh, well, they should be pushed to the forefront. Like I said in the last video, it should be a balance between the two. And Menagerie proves that there can be a balance between the two. What I mean by this is, Menagerie, you could go in as a beginner, not know anything, and still have a good time, because there's a good chance that one of the people you queue with is more of a hardcore player and can help you get through it. Whereas nowadays, trying to do something like, I don't know, Robber Baron, which people are already complaining about, even though there's still like 2 months left in the season. You know, without doing LFG, there's no way to guarantee that you're gonna get these. Now, mind you, a lot of the things that I've queued into has people going for these triumphs. Like, just, I've been solo queuing too, and I'll get into matches where people are just trying to do this triumph. But that's just an example of what I'm talking about. Like, I feel like definitely I want to see more emphasis on keeping the balance between the two sides rather than just casual or just hardcore, you know? Because, like, that's the big thing, is, like, at the end of the day, hardcore people aren't just grinding for, you know, the titles. You know, they want stuff that makes them look cool and feel cool, you know, for the effort that they put in. Like, for example, the reason why people liked a lot of the roll and all this stuff from, you know, previous Leviathan stuff is simple, because it looked really cool. Like, for example, let me pull up, I guess I'll pull up the arms here, see if it, like, look at this. It has like a glow on the outside because of the way you got it. Because you got these from like higher end versions of Raid. You know, and like bullet, like there are a lot of different types of things that like you can no longer get, and also that look, I don't know, they look basic. Like for example, the Deep Explorer suit looks pretty basic until you put like certain shaders on it, you know? And I'm hoping, because as you guys know, next season we get a dungeon. I'm hoping next season that next season's dungeon doesn't flop. And what I mean by this is duality's good for, you know, getting high stat armor and trying to get, you know, red borders and things along those lines. But it also fails in the cosmetic department because of some of the things that it has. Now, I will say the weapon cosmetic department, it succeeds gloriously at, but I don't know. Like, you look at the armor for duality and you go, huh? Because if you compare duality's armor, you know, the Deep Explorer, to its weapons, give me 1 second, I'll show you what I mean. Well, that was one hit. Anyway, but if you know, compare the armor set, you know, like the Deep Explorer helmet here, if you compare that, where it looks really basic and chunky, to Unforgiven, Unforgiven looks great. Like, it fits the vibe of duality. Same with, you know, like Sleepless, Storm Chaser, and all those, because they fit that duality, whereas the Deep Diver stuff feels out of place. So I'm hoping that this next dungeon that comes out in 2.5 months, I think it's about 27, or sorry, not 27, 67 days, if I'm correct. Yeah, 67 days until the next season. And mind you, this season does kind of feel different. And you guys are like, no, it doesn't. It's basically the same thing. The reason why I say it feels different is because of how things are slated. Because last season, the biggest issue we had is it felt like the end of the season dragged on. And what I mean by this is, so we got done with week 8. We had to wait, like, I think it was 1 to 2 weeks for the event, which was Solstice, to actually start. And then once it started, people were done by I want to say week 1. A lot of people were already done with the armor set, already done with the activity, and, you know, there was no reason to even play it. So, you know, the last few weeks of that were just kind of meh. And then after that, when Solstice went away, you know, we had the quote-unquote ending to the season, and that ending took a few weeks to even show up, you know? Whereas this season, it feels weird, and the reason why I say it feels weird is, so, like, we have week 8, which takes place the week before Season of the Lost starts. And that's, you know, the, like, final week, quote unquote, of the Triumph story. And the reason why I call it the Triumph story is because that's where the, like, triumphs end. And we know that's where it's going to end because there's 8 pirate lords, or so it says. And there's also, you know, 8 messages. And that's the big thing, is there is 8, right? But the thing about it is if you guys haven't been following the channel closely, I've been talking about a community event which seems to be taking place right after Festival of the Lost. And if this is true, that means Bungie has found a way to kind of put the gap behind them of, okay, this like event, whether it be Festival of the Lost, so on and so forth, they're trying to find a way to basically bridge the gap between the end of this, like, event of the season quote unquote, and the actual end of the season. And what I mean by this is, so I feel like the community event is going to bridge until the end of the season, where in the last week we'll get what is the conclusion of the season. Which, if you guys don't know how that works, is basically every season when it comes to the end, we have what's known as the epilogue. Which, if you guys haven't been around that long, I'll give you a brief rundown of the past few epilogues that we've had in seasons. For example, some of them haven't had like big epilogues. You know, Season of the Risen, we found out that Valis Forge ended up advancing to the rank of Valis because he got challenged a bunch of times. And then we also found out that he left his Iron Lord medallion and axe in the helm for Crow. Then the ending of, I believe, Season of the Haunted was, so we spent the entire season like basically breaking down like Callus and all this stuff. Well, eventually we got, on week 8, we got the final mission, right? Which was, we went in and we fight Callus, and then at the end, we find out that Callus has been detached from everything and has become a disciple. And then our final, ending is that all the spirits that helped us finally disappear. And it's kind of a sad moment because there's different parts that disappear. For example, Zavala's wife, Dominus Gall, and of course Uldren Zav. And how I feel like this season might end is, I don't think this season's gonna end with the sword fight. I feel like week 8 will be the sword fight though, because we've already seen them do a bunch of, like, I guess, cinematics this season, or like things that are happening in between. So I feel like the sword fight will happen either this coming week or next week, and then the ending will be maybe a reveal, or like the revival of Nezarec might be the like ending of the season. Because if you guys don't know, here, let me actually go load into it. The Helm, as we keep gathering relics, is starting to whisper to us really, really loudly. And I'll go ahead and I'll show it to you guys. It's pretty pretty weird, to say the least. Now for this, I believe you need your SFX up. I'm gonna go do that real quick while we're loading in here. Gotta wait for it to load. Notice it sounds normal here, but if we get close, listen to this. Also, if you notice, this last one we got is different, because like these are like all orbs and containers, and then this one's different. Now my theory with this is, and I might expand it in a different video, is that the last artifact is going to be Mithrax's finger that he used. But also Mithrax sounds like he's about to do something stupid. But anyway, guys, that's gonna do it for the video. I kind of rambled on about, stuff along the lines of Menagerie. But if you guys did enjoy the video, hit the like button, comment down below what is your prediction for how the season will end. I've already given my prediction multiple times. But yeah, let me know in the comments below. And guys, don't forget to subscribe, turn on post notifications so you never miss a video. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.